Welcome to Industry Insights with Route Consultant, your front row seat to the fast-moving world of logistics and beyond. Each week, we bring you game-changing insights, real-world strategies, and fresh perspectives to fuel smarter investments and build stronger businesses. Join us as we sit down with expert guests to explore emerging trends and pressing topics across a wide range of industries. This is Industry Insights. Welcome back to Industry Insights. We are here for part 2 of our exit strategy sessions. And if you weren't here for part 1, we went and talked through everything leading up to a successful sale of a business. And so for part 2, we're focused on everything that comes after. All of the things that you need to be doing and that you need to be thinking about to successfully transition into life after owning your business. And it's what a lot of entrepreneurs don't think about it until it's too late. So we want to spend a lot of time talking through all of that today. And to guide us through this conversation, we have brought Steve Alverson and Austin Coley from McCall Wealth Advisors to talk us through all of this. So Steve, Austin, if you guys just want to give a little bit of intro and background for those who were not here for part 1, make sure you go back and watch part 1 though.
Yeah, so Steve Alverson went to school in Missouri, studied business and math, moved here to Nashville so my wife could go to Belmont.
Okay.
And so I was struggling in the beginning to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And so I knew I wanted to get into finance, use my education, but it took me a minute. Ended up finding an opportunity to help a business owner in the gym business to make their business more profitable and sell it. And so that's kind of where I cut my teeth in the world. But then I found eventually found my senior partner at our business and met him at church, got to know him a little bit, know his character, know his how he operates. And I told him, hey, when this project ends, I'd like to work for you someday. And so that was 13 years ago. And it has been an amazing time since. So,
yeah. Austin Coley from the Middle Tennessee area, went to Belmont, played baseball, actually, studied entrepreneurship, played baseball for a while afterwards. When I was wrapping up with that, I too was wanting to figure out what was next for me. I wanted to make more than $13,000 a year playing minor league baseball. Yeah. And I wanted to help people, and I wanted to be part of a team. And so I found Barry and Steve through a connection at church, and so glad I did. So that was about 6 years ago. And I'm a certified financial planner and chartered advisor in philanthropy.
But both Belmont boys, right?
Well, my wife went to
was,
Belmont.
Yeah. So you both got allegiance to Belmont, I would say at
least.
Yes. Okay.
Even though it does not even resemble the same school now that I went to with all the growth that's happening there.
I haven't been on Belmont's campus in a long time.
It is crazy. I was there 2 years ago, and I'm sure they've done a lot since then, but it is wow, the growth is crazy.
That's awesome. Well, maybe I'll add it to the list of places in Nashville to go when I finally decide to go downtown around the corner.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, like I said, we talked last time about everything leading up to the sale. And, as a business owner, you've built a business for maybe decades, or maybe you even inherited it from a family. You've run this for a long time, and there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of thought process that goes into finally getting to that point. And then the elation of, okay, I've got an offer, I'm getting the money, I'm selling the business. And then you wake up the next day and there's no terminal to go to, there's no employees to call, there's no fires to put out. And, that is a splash of cold water of, what do I do now? How often is that the conversation that you're having with people of, what is my purpose today after I've sold everything I've done for the last 30 years?
Yeah, let me start with the story, because I think this really hits in on exactly the rest of our conversation today. So there's this business owner who had decided to sell his business. He just decided it was time. He'd run it for a long period of time. Found a great buyer. Mm-hmm. This buyer was not only going to be able to take over the business, keep it running successfully, but also wasn't going to change very much about it. It was really the perfect situation. The dollar amount that he was going to receive was enough for him to be able to do what he wanted to do post. It all made sense quantitatively and qualitatively as far as the business standpoint goes. They accepted the offer, and so the day came to close. And the buyer was sitting there at the closing table with his attorney, and all of a sudden closing time came and it went. 15 minutes passed, 30 minutes passed. And eventually they got a call from the attorney and said, hey, the seller's coming up. I'm not going to be with him. He's got something to ask. And so he walks in the door and they kind of look like what's going on. And the seller goes, listen, I'm super happy with what you're going to do with the business. I'm super happy with the price, but I want to know, can I come to work on Monday? And the buyer goes, no, like I am literally paying you millions of dollars not to come to work on Monday. No, seller says, well, I'm sorry, I can't sign because I don't know what I'm going to do if I sell this business, what I'm going to do on
Monday.
This was a Friday.
Yeah, gosh. And I don't think that's an uncommon experience for owners of, hopefully it's not. Hopefully it's rare that they actually give up that level of exit and money. But yeah, it does.
We had we had a conversation on our podcast with a guy named Joe Maxwell. Joe runs a VC fund here in town that focuses on financial technologies. It's called FinTop Capital, and Joe talks a lot about how when owners, especially owner operators who sell, they are so used to setting the alarm clock, jumping out of bed and driving 90 miles an hour to work because they have 15 fires they got to put out, 12 calls to hop on, and a bunch of product to sell, right? Like that is their day-to-day, Monday through Sunday for however long they're running the business. When they sell, what are they going to have? What's on the schedule to set the alarm for? Are they going to be okay driving 40 miles an hour to the grocery store rather than, 90 miles an hour to work? Like all that stuff matters from a happiness standpoint post-sale.
Yeah. And we always talk, like we encourage folks to say, okay, let's assess your hobbies. And like, that's one thing, but it's more than that because you can't golf all the time.
Yeah.
You can't hunt all the time. And I'm sorry, but most likely, if you've worked for 15, 30 years in a particular job where you're gone for 40 to 70 hours a week, your spouse probably doesn't want you around 40 to 70 because you're used to solving problems, and you're going to probably start to solve their problems. And that doesn't necessarily work, you know? And so we really, really emphasize you have to have a reason to set that alarm. You are wired a certain way. You're wired to solve problems. Where are you going to put that energy? It can't just be in your hobbies.
Yeah, because hobbies, the best thing about them is that you're doing them, in contrast to your normal day-to-day. It's, it's a break, it's a relief. But when that's all that you have, even your hobbies start to be painful. And so
you got to have some, if you're used to productivity all the time, I don't know about you, but when I go to the beach, 2-3 days, I'm ready to I'm antsy.
Yeah.
I feel like I got to do something, and that's hard. That's a hard adjustment. And, you got to make sure you do that well. There's a stat through the Exit Planning Institute that we follow. 74% of all business transactions at the end of the year, if you ask that owner how happy they are, 74% are unhappy. And that's not always, in fact, most of the time, it's not financially related. It's they liked being in the game. They miss it. They miss the status. They've got all this free time. They don't know what to do with it. And then there are some financial implications too. Maybe they were unhappy with the sale, or they see an opportunity that they could probably scale it, but they don't have the control and they don't have the business anymore. So they can't take advantage of that. And so, making sure that you have a reason to set the alarm and you know where that energy is going to go. I think those are two of the most important questions to answer before you even consider finances.
Yeah, because I think it's rare for people to be able to have, the vision to think about the fact that most of their identity or a lot of their identity is tied to that business that they've built and their success in it. And yes, it is validating and fulfilling to sell that business for a lot of money, but then afterwards you don't have that, your identity, and I think it's difficult without talking to somebody else, without having the right advisors and conversations to be able to self-reflect and see that. So we talked last time about how some of your early conversations are kind of helping them to frame and think through the steps leading up to exit strategy. But I think you even touched on it. How often early are the conversations also about, hey, we're going to plan for the next 10 years if that's how long until you want to sell the business, but we've got to plan for the 10, 20 after that too.
Yeah. It's one of the first conversations we have. In fact, in the discovery call, not only were we trying to understand what the quantitative aspects of the business are and the personal, right? But it's also what drives the person and what are you going to do post? Because there's got to be a reason that you're selling the business. It can't just be that you're tired of operating or there's got to be something post that you're passionate about doing. And so for a lot of people, what we do is we introduce them to a process that we have called the Cornerstone. So the Cornerstone is a proprietary process that we've created at McCall Wealth Advisors. And what we do, it's about 2.5 hours with each person. It doesn't have anything quantitative in it. What we do is we try to uncover a personal or family mission statement for that person or that couple, that family. The second thing is goals. And those goals, yes, there's a lot of financial goals in there, right? Exit the business well, buy a beach house, whatever that might look like. But there's also some non-financial goals in there that would be like, run a marathon, hike Mount Kilimanjaro, things that aren't financially related, but we have to put stuff on paper, goals that you want to accomplish, goals that you want to achieve. Because if they live in your brain, if they live in your head, most of the time we don't ever do them, right? They have to be spoken. And so it's mission, it's goals. And then the last thing we do is we create a timeline. And that timeline not only includes all the financial stuff, but it also includes the non-financial stuff. Because a lot of times that's some of the most important work you can do. That's organizations that you want to support, not only financially, but with your time and with your passions and with your talents as well. It's family members that you want to spend time with. It is hobbies, stuff that you really care about doing, whether that's anything from golfing to hunting. We want to make sure that you have time to do that. But it's actually processing and thinking through that stuff ahead of time. And we talked last time a lot about reducing owner centricity, so taking yourself out of the business. One of the perks of doing that is you do free up a lot of time that you can kind of have a pseudo part-time retirement to try out some of these things. And you can end up saying, yes, I enjoy this. I want to spend more time working with my favorite organization or charity. Or, you know what? I'm bored. I want to continue to run this business because that's where I find the most value. And reducing owner centricity allows you to do that.
Yeah. So, a 2.5 hour conversation is a lot. And I think when we're sitting here, I think it's like we can see how important it is to be thinking about that in a lot of depth. How often are you finding the owners are like, I just want to get as much money as I can when I sell the business versus like how hard is it to get them to have that mind shift of it's really essential that if you want this to actually be viewed as a success, then you have to be happy afterwards. How hard is that mind shift to get people to see early in the process?
Yeah, it totally depends on the business owner. We found that most business owners, I would say it's a third. A third of them are really excited to dive into that work. A third, are open to it. And then a third are like, why are we talking about this? You're my wealth advisor, right? And so I think it's all about just explanation and helping a business owner understand why this is important and why we're having this conversation. And the other thing is trust, right? If a business owner trusts us to do a good job and trusts the value that we're bringing, then they'll see why we're having this conversation. But if they just see us as a wealth advisor and somebody to help, them get the biggest check at the end of the day, then honestly, it's probably not a great fit for us because we care about doing a lot more life with our clients than just getting that big check.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times where we have found that it offers the most value is when there is an area of uncertainty. It's like I got a fork in the road that's coming up. I got a big decision that I have to decide on that's not necessarily quantitative. It's more qualitative for our family and the direction. It's, do I buy another business with the resources, or do I just maybe do some consulting work and then maybe start working with some philanthropic initiatives that I have a passion about. Or maybe it's consulting with some hobbies. It's like, but you can't really explore those opportunities with your spouse. You don't set time aside to do that. And we feel like with a structured process, we're only asking 5 questions, and we can extract a lot of that out of there. And it's everyone that has gone through it has been like, this is tremendously valuable. But again, in order to get them to say yes, a lot of times they have to have a fork in the road or an area of uncertainty. And so,
yeah. And I'll say this with business owners, and I say this carefully, business owners are psychos in a lot of ways. I could say that because Steve and I, owners in our business. And I say that just meaning that they're built differently than W-2 employees, right? You go to sleep on weekends thinking about your business instead of clocking out Friday at 5:00. And so while we talk and we preach the importance of understanding what you think you might enjoy or find value in post-sale, we also know that that's just an educated guess, right? Until you actually get into it, there's really no way to know for sure. And so what we do with the assets post-sale also reflects that. One thing that we like to do sometimes is protect a portion of the assets, knowing that a lot of business owners are what we call boomerang business owners. They'll sell a business, they'll sit for a little bit, and then they'll jump back into something else, right? And so managing the assets post actually works a lot differently than a W-2 employee that retires at 65.
Yeah, that seems very intuitive and foresight, having that money set aside, because I know I can't tell you how many people we've sold their business and then I talk to them 6 months later as they're buying another one. Like, that's just so regular. And I would imagine it's very common to not know how you're going to feel afterwards and think that you'll do one thing and just have 7 reactions that you weren't expecting at all. And so I think that's got to be one of the hardest things. So you help everybody set these goals, you come up to a finish line, and then those first 30 days, how often is it just you're pivoting completely?
Right.
60 days, 90 days after a close. Like, what does that look like typically after?
Yeah, 60 to 90 days, not so much. I mean, usually
still living on the high.
Yeah, exactly. It's still the honeymoon phase, right? And we encourage celebrate this, right? Like, this is a huge, huge win. Go on that big trip that you've been putting off because you hadn't had time, right? Enjoy that with your family. Really, it's when you get after the honeymoon into the day-to-day life that you start to really unpack, like, am I happy or am I not? Am I one of those 74% of business owners? Now, we can try to negate that as much as possible with conversations post. But again, you're not going to be able to truly feel that. And so, I think it's about half the time that business owners need to find something else. And what we found is once you get into retirement, 70s, 80s, if you don't have that thing that you're excited about waking up and doing throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, it can actually shorten lifespan, right? You have to have that thing that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And so whether that is buying and operating another business, a lot of that stuff has to be figured out post, which is why you need a plan that's very, very flexible and malleable and not something that's very structured.
Okay.
And I would say to add to that too, most of the folks that come to us they came to us because they know they needed a plan. And so we do a lot of the planning on the front end before the sale. And so we don't see a whole lot of surprises afterwards in terms of massive pivots. Now we might have to reassess our Cornerstone because the goals and some of the things change. But
that's what I was going to ask. If you do a Cornerstone round 2 afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, especially if they've got their basic needs, they're independently, financially independent from needing to buy another business. Opportunities are always coming, and so we go through a process and let's see, is this going to be good for you? Does it align with what you're trying to do? Is it going to affect you financially? And do you have the margin to really make this work? And so Like I said, we don't have a lot of pivots, but major pivots, I guess. But yeah, pivots happen all the time.
Hey guys, we just wanted to pause for a moment to invite you to our free events that are happening throughout the year. Whether you're just getting started in the logistics industry or you're looking to optimize your current operation, Route Consultant has events that are designed specifically for you. So head on over to routeconsultant.com/events or check out our show notes to register for free today. Also, while you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Industry Insights with Route Consultant podcast so that you don't miss out on the stories, the advice, and the updates that are happening throughout the industry. We appreciate you being here and hope to meet you in person soon. Now let's get back to the episode. How often do you guys have people come to you who are, it's not prior to a sale? It's like maybe they've made a sale in their later stages of life and are just coming for typical wealth management. Is that normal too?
Yeah.
So if that is normal, compare for me, somebody who's done it, they came to you 10, 15 years in advance, they've done an exit strategy and they've planned that all the way through to a successful close. You had the plans in place, you were ready for the legacy afterwards, versus somebody who's just coming and asking you to manage something that they've already done. What are some red flags or some things that you see people just forget or aren't thinking about properly if they don't have it built in from the beginning?
Yeah, I think the best way to kind of to talk about this is to make an analogy. So if you have, let's say you have a homeowner that's taken really good care of a home for 10, 15 years prior to sell, there's just going to be less risk and less chance when they go to market and the value that they're going to receive post rather than somebody who hasn't taken care of their home. There's going to be more work to do. And so people that come to us post-sale, that doesn't mean that they can't get into a spot that they're really, really happy with it. In fact, that a lot of times, they're in a pretty good spot. We just help, add the finishing touches to it. But I would just say if you're able to have the conversation 10, 15 years leading up to it, you just reduce the amount of risk that you're taking post. Not only that, but you're just able to build a lot of trust as well. We're able to do a lot of life with those clients. And so, as they move into that time frame, into retirement, we feel like we're a part of the family in a lot of ways and are able to offer advice not only to the business owner, but, maybe to the spouse as well and to the kids. And you just have more of an ingrained relationship that just increases the chances of success rather than kind of coming at the end and having to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. It can certainly be done. We do it all the time and it's very successful. You just don't have that continuity.
Yeah. Wait, you touched on it. We've talked a lot about how this impacts someone personally, but obviously when you're talking legacy planning, it's not just what are the things that make me happy afterwards. So how do you think about this when you're talking about family, spouse, future kids that aren't even there? Like what are those conversations look like and how are they different than just personal meaning?
Yeah. One thing, if a business owner, and this totally depends on the business owner, and we encourage openness if a business owner is comfortable with it. And so one thing that we really like doing is having family meetings if at all possible. And so this would be not only having the business owner in the meeting, but also the spouse, maybe even the kids, if they're mature and at an age where they are involved in that discussion, just so everybody's in the loop. We talk about the phrase, a lot of generational wealth goes away after the third generation that it's passed down. And so what can we do to help mitigate that? That's education, to the kids. That's a very solid estate plan. It's all of those things that are super important to have everybody in the loop with. I'd say another thing that we've really found that works well is establishing some sort of family foundation. And so this could look like an actual charitable foundation. It could also look like a donor advised fund. And so you have this pool of money that's earmarked for charitable purposes. And then you bring your spouse and you bring your kids into the room all together and you decide which organizations you want to distribute assets to. That makes your family stronger. And it also really increases the likelihood that your kids are going to steward capital well, after you're gone.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd imagine that those are the conversations that, especially when you're talking about, making this where you've worked with somebody for a long time, you feel like you're a part of the family, is that those can be even more impactful than just when you're talking about just helping somebody individually be successful, but really saying, the work we're doing is creating generational wealth, not just for this business owner that we've helped transition, but this entire family that's here now and the family to come. And so that has to be personally edifying for you guys as well.
Yeah.
So you touched on philanthropy a little bit, and this also comes a little bit on several of the things you've talked about today. When you're trying to add dimension to what you're providing for the families, is this all in-house? Do you find the right charity organizations for them? Is it all done by y'all's team?
Yeah. So let me hit on one thing philanthropy wise that I think is really cool is if a business owner is charitably inclined,
yeah,
it makes a whole lot more sense to give a portion of your business to some sort of charitable vehicle before you sell rather than do it post.
Okay.
And so let's say, you give 10% of your business to a donor advised fund, which we can administer through our relationship with Raymond James. That not only is that 10%, you get that deduction in the year of gift based on fair market value of the business. But then when you sell that, you don't have to pay tax on that 10% either. And so it's kind of like a double benefit, right, to doing that. And so for us, our role is to help administer the charitable vehicle. Now, we don't go out and help source nonprofits. We're happy to talk through that. I don't think it's our place to recommend organizations because there's so many. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, but we help through the Cornerstone process. We kind of have an understanding of their values, and out of that conversation, it can help lead to
certainly
giving them direction on that.
Because I'd imagine a lot of people don't know, they might not even necessarily know until that conversation where they would want to give money. And then after that, they have general ideas, but don't necessarily know where to put it. So I'm sure there's parts of that too.
And it's part of the exercise that Austin, to give Austin credit, once you set those resources aside, like first you need to set the resources aside.
Right.
And then once they're there, then you can start having more of the discussions. Hey, why don't we give 10% of it away this year? And let's have a family meeting and let's explore. What do you think? What do you think? And then that's where talking about generational, it's not only helping and teaching them to be good stewards financially, but it's also it's like you're ensuring family values that are going to last for generation, that like reinforces who you are as a family. It's actually really beautiful to to see that, because it's way more than finances. So,
yeah. I think that's a great point. While we don't say, hey, you should give to A, B, C, and D,
right,
the Cornerstone can help uncover those underlying causes. And on the other side, causes that they, more importantly, don't feel like they, necessarily feel strongly about supporting. Really, it's about narrowing the scope, I think, is what you're getting out. If they can narrow the scope on the types of causes they want to support, it makes finding those organizations so much easier.
And what's unique about having some of these vehicles is that you don't have to say, okay, yes, I'm selling my business. I want to give 5% of the net proceeds away. You don't have to say, okay, I want to give it all in one. A lot of times, and in fact, most, especially if they're small organizations, they're not set up to accept very large piece unless there's like a project that you're trying, and so you can set it aside and gift it over time.
Okay. That's all of that makes sense. It's not something I would have thought of, so I'm sure it's not something that most business owners are thinking of either.
Well, and one other tool that I think is really cool is these things called charitable remainder trusts. And so this is another way to give an appreciated asset like your business to an organization like a charity. But it's a way that you give it to this trust. You're able to receive income off of the trust for a period of time or over your life. And then after you're gone, or that period of time passes, the remainder that's left inside that trust then goes to the organization of your choosing. And so the point is, if you don't have a desire to give charitably, the tax benefits of doing it are never going to make up for the money that you're putting in that vehicle. Right. But if you do have a heart to give, there are ways and methods to do it that are way more effective than selling your business and then just writing a check to an organization.
Yeah. And you might as well be efficient with it, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, I'm not going to say choose your favorite, but if you could just walk through, what's something you've seen recently or in the last couple of years, like a story of somebody who, maybe they were perfectly prepared and their plan was great, or maybe they had that wake up call after a few months of selling the business of, I've got to figure out a new path in life. But like, what are some stories you've seen from some of your clients in this legacy phase of their business?
Yeah. One that comes to mind right now is a gentleman who actually sold his business this year,
Okay.
Early part of this year. So we're not yet kind of, I guess, 12 months out of the business, but he grinded for a long time, worked really long hours, and he could have continued to work and probably received a bigger multiple if he put 3, 4, 5 more years behind the business, but had a couple of family reasons why he wanted to step away and spend more time with his loved ones. And so he sold. He was happy with the proceeds. He was able to do everything he can do post. And yes, he plays golf. Yes, he has hobbies, right? But his why, which was spending more time with those people he cared about, that box is being checked. And so if you asked him, which you have, I'm happy for doing it, right? Luckily, I can't think of anybody that we've worked with, post Steve. You may have. You've got one? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's they had a couple of different opportunities because of their career, without going too much into it. But they had a liquidity event that happened about 7 years ago, I think. And so they're very philanthropically inclined. They go to church. They are very involved with the community, but they didn't have a specific place that they wanted it to go. But when the liquidity event happens, you're making a whole bunch of other decisions. And so what we did is we set up a donor advised fund, and we spent a little bit of time on the front end to try to see, okay, who are the leaders, the officers. And so they actually ended up having both of their kids. They adopted later in life. And so they had teenagers at the time. And so they had both of their kids involved. And so every year, it's one of my favorite conversations, twice a year, they look back and they say, hey, Steve, I'd like to give, X percentage of the proceeds, and we'd like to give to these 8 organizations. And it's always, it's not, a lot of times it's the same organizations, but a lot of times it's something different. It's, you live your life, you run across things that happen you want to give to, and, it's not a lot. It's $1,500 here, $2,000 there, but, but we get to have those conversations. And what's so awesome about it is that when we do our end of the year review, we look back, we have been able, fortunately the market's helped us too, but we've been able to keep pace with the exact same amount. And they've given almost all of that away, but they still have the same balance, which is like that. I mean,
that's awesome.
And the kid, like I was telling you before, the kids are involved. They get excited about it. They go out to dinner, and it's just like a big family. I don't know. It's one of the greatest joys that I have in doing what we do is helping folks set up a system that they can be generous.
Yeah. And I think that's why we're having these conversations, right? Like we talked about from the beginning, people, when they get into a business, ultimately they're going to exit it. And unfortunately, a lot of the times they don't even have any control over when. And so obviously we want to help them be as successful as they can in that exit. But when you build something, when you spend your whole life building it, you want to make sure that the years afterwards are just as successful as that one day where you sell the business. And I think hearing these stories, hearing about how there is a way you can build a path for yourself, a legacy for your family if you choose it. And that is the happiness that I think, that's the success that I think ultimately every business owner should be shooting for. And ideally, that's a part of your plan even before you start the business. And so I think that's just, part of what we want to do in these two conversations is just to help people see that the end has to be planned from the beginning, and it is doable, but it does take intentional effort and partnering with the right people to help you think through these things from day one. And so Steve and Austin, I really appreciate you guys being here and talking through what I think is an incredibly important part of every business owner's work in life.
Yeah.
Now, before I let you go, I do have to always ask one more question of people on their way out. So for each of you, you can answer both parts of this or just one, but what is your favorite book or movie that you have read or watched recently? You can, like I said, you can do both. You can do either, but you can't skip them both. It doesn't have to be deeply impactful. It can be, what you watched on Netflix last week.
Okay. I'll go first. And so hopefully you're not going to use this. We're actually going through a book right now that's really good. It's called Traction.
Okay.
And it's setting up systems within your business.
Okay.
And it's been really fruitful for our team, and I really enjoy that. So that's a book it's called Traction. And then the movie, I'm going to actually pivot. I'm going to say a show.
Show's perfectly fine.
So I'm a believer, and I go to church, and there's a not Netflix. It's Amazon Prime has it's called House of David. They have
is that the real life or the live action ones? Yeah,
it's real life depiction of David.
Yeah,
and I felt like Hollywood met an old story and actually did a really good job. And whether you're a person of faith or not, Hollywood did a good job.
Okay.
And so
I've seen the trailers for that, but I haven't seen it.
It's really good.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to do a podcast.
Okay.
Is that okay? Can I take your?
You can.
Can I take your question and not answer it by answering something else?
Yeah.
Just because this stuck out, something that I really enjoy. I started listening to this podcast called Founders.
Okay.
David Sinra is the guy that does it. So he reads a biography of some sort of past industry titan, about once a week. And then he shares in about an hour, his top thoughts from
their entire life.
Yeah. Kind of spending, he calls it having a one-sided conversation with this, past person. So it's not necessarily a recap of the book, but it's more, hey, here is some of the principles that, guys like Rockefeller, Carnegie, those guys really took to heart when they were building their businesses. And not everything's applicable, but there are certain things that you can take from that are really good to apply to your own life and your own business.
Cool. All right. Well, House of David, Traction, and Founders. Those are the recommendations.
Yeah,
so thank you guys for being here, for answering all my questions. And hopefully, if anyone has any questions, you can reach out to McCall Wealth Advisors and talk through with Steve and Austin. So thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Josh.